Hi there. Today I want to share with you some of my thoughts around the 6-week postnatal check that you may have with your GP, your midwife, your obstetrician, for example, versus the pelvic floor physiotherapy or women's health physiotherapy pelvic floor assessment that you would have, and the differences between the two and what this actually means for return to sport, return to exercise and fitness, and also some of the miscommunications that can sometimes happen and what I often see happening as well. So if we first look at the 6-week postnatal check that you would have with your GP or midwife, for example, it's important that we understand that this really is about monitoring and making sure that a woman is healing and progressing in a way that is anticipated, that's expected, and really looking for and making sure that there are no signs and symptoms to be made aware of that might indicate that something needs attention. For example, signs and symptoms of infection or perhaps ongoing heavy bleeding that's not yet explained, or perhaps it's looking at the mental health and the physical health. So are there signs and symptoms of postnatal depression, for example? So it's really looking at, is this woman progressing and healing in a way that is anticipated, that is expected, and is there anything of significance that needs to be addressed from a medical perspective? And it's often in this check that women may ask, is it safe for me to start exercising again? And the health professional may well say yes. And when they're saying yes, what they're actually saying is that from a health perspective, there is nothing here that they have identified that would mean that beginning exercise or returning to sport and fitness would be contraindicated, or that there is anything here from what we've seen here today that would indicate that it's not safe. But what they perhaps have not explained, or what hasn't been well understood, is that actually doesn't give any idea of the deep core and pelvic floor and the integrity of the deep core and the pelvic floor and the strength and condition, and how that may be impacted by particular types of sport, exercise, fitness. And so whilst there may be some internal check, maybe there is some indication of the GP, for example, saying, oh yes, I can see there is some prolapse here. Or maybe they have had a look at the perineum and said, you know, your stitches are healing really beautifully, or there's nothing here that looks out of place or you need to be aware of. They haven't gained enough information to be able to guide you and tell you specifically what types of exercise might be better choices and what type of exercise might be needed to be avoided right now for you in your body. And often what I hear a lot of the time from women is that I've been told I have some prolapse, but they don't know to what degree, prolapse of what part of the vagina or what part of their body, and they're kind of left with a little bit of information, but almost not enough to be making decisions for themselves in their body, feeling like they can be confident in terms of their sport and their exercise. Or they feel like, oh, okay, the GP said to me that it's okay to return to exercise, and that must mean that it's okay for me to start running, for example. So the missing piece in this situation or scenario is often that we haven't really let the woman know, okay, yes, from what we've seen, it's safe, but we haven't actually looked at all of the things that have an impact to actually have for you to make a really good, well-informed decision. And so we can't really make a well-informed decision if we don't have all of the pieces of the information. And so what would you receive in terms of pelvic floor physiotherapy assessment, and what kinds of information would you get from that? Firstly, let me say that this does need to be an internal vaginal assessment, and a transabdominal ultrasound isn't going to give accurate information around the pelvic floor, the integrity of the muscle and the fascia as well. And so we're looking at, when we take a look at the pelvic floor, particularly in a postnatal assessment, the condition and the integrity of both the muscles and the fascial component of the pelvic floor as well. So you will have an idea of, after this assessment, the strength of the pelvic floor, the coordination of your pelvic floor, and the endurance of your pelvic floor as well. Alongside of that, you will have information around the pelvic organs and where are they sitting within the pelvis, and is there any movement of the front wall, the back wall, and the central or the cervix within the vagina as well. And that movement and the amount of movement then gives you information around the presence, particularly if you have signs and symptoms that go alongside of that, of pelvic organ prolapse. And then with that information as well, some measurements can be taken to actually identify what your risk of pelvic organ prolapse is at this point in time. With that, alongside a deep core assessment and also looking at the abdominal separation as well, with that information, we are better able to guide you then around what exercise may be better exercises to choose at this point in time. What are some things that you can do to help protect and restore the deep core and the pelvic floor as well? And also, what is a safe and sensible progression of exercise as well, helping you to get towards whatever movement that you are wanting to enjoy in your body. Now, the piece of the puzzle here that's often missing is that we can say this is where your pelvic organs are sitting at this point in time, and this is the strength of the pelvic floor. But often what we miss is that it's at this point in time. And so we automatically then start to prescribe exercises and pelvic floor exercises and strengthening, etc. But often, if you've told a woman or the woman has heard from you, it is not advised that you run or not advised that you lift weights, but I do advise that you start a pelvic floor strengthening program. If we aren't told that you aren't advised, or running isn't advisable at this point in time, but it is something that we can hopefully work towards, without those words or that information, a woman's often left wondering, so why am I doing all of this deep core and pelvic floor work if I can't actually do the one thing that I love? You know, you've just told me that it's not advisable to run, but we need to start all of these pelvic floor strengthening exercises. So the main piece of the information there that it's missing is that this is what's recommended at this point in time. These are the things that are recommended to be avoided at this point in time. But if we work together and if this is your goal, then in knowing that, we will be able to establish now a safe and sensible progression towards working towards that goal. So that is my thoughts. If you absolutely have any questions, please let me know your thoughts, your experiences. I would love to know. See you.